Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to tell you about this project where I've been working on turning an invisible condition into a talking point. But before I do that, I'm actually going to take you back in time, back to the 24th of August, 2018, back when we could travel. At the time, I ran a nonprofit event series called Creative Mornings, and me and my team were on our way to New York City for a conference. That morning, I'd been feeling a bit tired, and the kind of tired where I was struggling to get up my own stairs, or I struggling to hold a hairdryer up. And so I went to a doctor's appointment to just get a checkup, and I asked the nurse if I was all right to fly, and she said yes. So I'm on this plane with my team. We're taxiing down the runway, and I feel my phone vibrate. And I go to switch it off, but when I see that it's my doctor calling, I kind of scooch down in the seat and take the call. And then without even saying hello, she says, "Your blood sugar is through the roof. You need to get to hospital immediately." I explain where I am, and after suggesting I stop the plane, she says, "Just get to the hospital immediately in New York." I hang up, and I now have 9 hours without access to Google to contemplate what she's just told me. I spent 3 days in hospital attached to drip. The doctors said any longer, and I wouldn't have walked in. Those days were an absolute whirlwind of information being shown: how to prick my finger, how to test my blood, how to take insulin. But when I think back to that time, the main thing that I remember was how much misinformation took me to that point of being diagnosed. And the things which these elements of misinformation were, I didn't know what type 1 diabetes was, so didn't recognize the telltale signs. I thought diabetes was something you got for eating too much sugar or being really old. The nurse didn't catch the sign and instead congratulated me on losing 11 kilos in less than 3 months. And I'd been told on the plane by a helpful stranger that to not worry, as long as I exercised and ate well, I wouldn't need insulin. And even whilst I was lying in bed in what was supposed to be New York's best endocrinology hospital, as they kept telling me, the nurse was chatting to a colleague in the corridor discussing my case. And like, yeah, she got diagnosed on the plane. She's from Scotland, but get this, she's so old. I remember sitting there just going like, dude, I'm right here. So basically, to kind of clear up some of the misinformation around that, type 1 diabetes is actually an autoimmune condition that occurs when the body's own immune system attacks and destroys the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas, basically the hormone that regulates blood sugar. High blood sugar over time can affect major organs in your body, like your heart, blood vessels, nerves, eyes, kidneys, all the good stuff. We don't know what causes this autoimmune condition, only that cases are rising. And on average, in the UK, 40 people a day are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and half of them are adults. For people with type 1, it's kind of like there's a thermostat in our body that's broken, and we need to inject insulin to regulate our blood sugar. And if we take too much, we go too low and risk passing out within 20 minutes. So then we need some fast-acting sugar to bring us back up. But if we don't take our insulin, our blood sugar will just rise and rise and rise, resulting in the top 3 issues are blindness, heart failure, and amputation. So I check my blood sugar about 20 times a day. I've got a sensor in my arm, which is a cool piece of kit. And every time I eat, sleep, exercise, I need to know what my blood sugar is doing to stay safe. And while you're getting to grips with a condition which is 24/7 like this, you're also dealing with a lot of the misinformation that, as I explained at the start, I held very strongly as well. I've been told that I'm too old for it. I've been told I couldn't eat that. I've been asked why I had to medicate so much and how their aunt had cured themselves. And when you're coming to terms with a chronic condition, it can be quite overwhelming. And for 1 in every 4 adults in the UK, it gets so much, it becomes so much that they can't face taking care of themselves. And this is referred to as diabetes distress or diabetes burnout. And it's similar to burnout that we all recognize, except in this case, when people stop taking their insulin or kind of take it without really calculating, this is what leads to those complications that I'd mentioned earlier. And this is obviously a huge toll on the individual, but it's also a massive wider toll for society. In the UK, we spend £25,000 a minute on diabetes, with most of that being spent on preventable conditions. If you can stay in that range, there's a likelihood of living a very happy, strong, and long life. But those numbers really dip if you kind of fall out of that range. And so to take you back to my diagnosis, 10 months after the diagnosis, I was kind of on the edge of that burnout, and I was feeling extremely isolated. But now I know that people with diabetes are twice as likely to experience depression than the general population. And that's actually quite a well-known stat in the medical world. But when I heard this, I was like, why is no one talking about this? So as much as for myself as for the people around me, I decided to try and build awareness of this invisible condition. And I did that by making a poster a day inspired by the many facets of living with type 1. My process was to take scientific literature, articles, and transform them into these kind of bright, colorful, engaging posters and mini essays. And I covered things like symptoms to look out for, the mental health aspect, as well as covering the kind of daily life of diabetes and shit diabetics say a lot. And after, in 2019, this work culminated in an exhibition that was also covered by BBC Scotland. And basically the point of it was about vulgarizing information, medical information, and tricking people into learning about diabetes. It got a lot of the type 1 community were really interested, but equally as this exhibition attracted interest from the diabetes specialist community. And I got invited to present my work at the annual Diabetes UK conference, cancelled due to COVID. But by now, in this journey, I had both a validated problem, I was not alone in experiencing this diabetes distress, and an idea of a solution to normalize discussing it and break out of that isolation. So I applied for this grant thing, which you might have heard about. And basically, this is what I have been doing over the last kind of 8 months. What I wanted to do with this funding was to develop a toolkit that translates the clinical information into a visually engaging, medically approved patient recovery program. Been thinking a bit as like the baby box for type 1 diabetes, if you will. And if I was to make this product medically accurate and get it into the hands of recently diagnosed adults, I'd need to get some healthcare professionals on board. So I actually hacked one of my own medical appointments, and through that met a number of brilliant diabetes specialist physicians, Dr. Emily McMurray, Dr. Gifford, and Dr. Howes. At this moment, I should, as Anna can explain in my introduction, my day job is innovation and strategy, where I help organizations develop and launch new products. And I used a lot of my own tools on this project. And in this picture, we've got a multidisciplinary team made up of designers, researchers, data scientists, psychiatrists, nurses, and physicians. And we're all focused on this one question. Would acknowledging the psychological effects as much as the physical ones of a type 1 diagnosis lead to faster acceptance and better diabetes management? So over the month, we worked on multiple prototypes that we tested with diabetic specialist nurses, with people recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, as well as the physicians. And where we got to, where we are today is basically we're working on this card-based toolkit that is kind of tarot for diabetes, the way to remember it, to navigate the highs and lows of living with type 1. And they've been described as like flashcards for diabetes. They serve as a medically accurate, friendly introduction for someone recently diagnosed, a novel refresher for the more seasoned, or an engaging invitation to anyone with an interest in the chronic condition. And some are these short introductions about how to talk about a concept. Other ones are strategies, which we've been working on with the clinical psychologists, translating kind of all this very clinical information into digestible bite sizes that people who are experiencing extreme stress can kind of start to grapple with, as well as share with family and friends. I know a very short amount of time to get you through all this work, but basically we are still developing the toolkit. So far the feedback's been really positive, and we're hoping to begin patient trials kind of later this year. I'm very happy to speak to anyone who's interested in this type of work and are kind of enthralled by the idea of making living with a chronic condition less clinical and a lot more livable. And I wanted to leave you with this. Thank you so much for having me, Creative Edinburgh. And I'm a bit jittery because I've been working 48 hours straight to launch the website, and it's just gone live. And to celebrate, I invite you guys to join, go and have a little visit on the website, follow us on Instagram. You can get your own PDF to recognize the signs of type 1 diabetes. If you saw the news recently, it's still a common problem that people miss the signs. So download the PDF, be a hero. And also, if you want to inject some life into living with type 1 diabetes, or a friend, or just interested in medical inspired art, have a go at that promo code. And yeah, thanks for having me. This will stop tour.